All right, I'm going to call to order a special meeting of the Wellington Board of Selectmen. This is our budget workshop. It is Monday, February 6th, 2023 at 5:32 p.m. I'll note that all three selectmen are present in person. All right, we have one item on our agenda, and that's budget workshop. So pick up a little bit where we left off, and I'll catch up for, like, I don't know, you had an opportunity to take a look at budget materials. I
have skimmed over it, yeah.
So the budget that you should have had a copy in front of you was an 11.22% increase. That is nothing new. No new programs, no new road funds, right? So we addressed a potential increase in asphalt to a total of 805,000, and we use that based off of the beta information we received. That is not in this 11.22. So this is everything just status quo, new costs. I will note the only new thing in there is the senior center coordinator position. That is a relatively new. It was brought on last year with ARPA, and it is fully into a budget this year. So the other items we talked about requested, and I'd like us to give some consideration besides the roads, is two positions. Once again, Troy is advocating for a mechanic and a laborer within his department. And so we've kind of talked about how we could utilize a mechanic, and then that would be a better use, and to be able to use that individual as a laborer when there wasn't mechanic work. If we added that and went that direction, and a facilities manager, facilities director, and that facilities director discussion came from not just myself, but out of CIP, working with our superintendent. I think it's very clear that we there's a need to have someone who can oversee some of those things in our many aging buildings. But those costs bring us well over 30%. So while I think that they are all critical, I recognize that would be very difficult. So we can take those as an aside, but in the meantime, on the budget that you do have, again, with an 11.22% increase, CIP made some adjustments to their budget, which may have created a savings for this budget because it translates. But Donna, maybe Donna can update us as to why we won't see a decrease in our budget because of the CIP expenditures plans.
Yes. So as I was going over the CIP and tying everything to the balance sheet, there were a couple of projects that weren't in the approved CIP that added after. And one was $350,000 for Moose Meadow road repairs. And we, from the reserve fund, increased for the truck for Troy, $40,000. So we have that allocated from the reserve fund. So we are thinking that our budget for the local funds is probably close to what we thought it was.
Because we'd have to, so CIP with the projects we had thought we could bring that local funds down $200,000. But when Donna goes out, not having those dollars won't support the projects moving forward because of it. I think it's important to say that it was a planned public works vehicle. That was the dump truck that was suddenly much more expensive than when we started the budgeting process on it. And then the Moose Meadow road, right?
And as it was the dump truck, we already split it anyway to dull the effect on the budget. We had already done that split on Board of Finance, part out of capital, part out of leasing.
Yeah.
So
while I got excited for a moment, this is why we look at those numbers and rely on Donna's expertise knowledge to bring us back into reality. So Donna, with that, I believe that larger expense was out of 930. Would you suggest that then the adjustment in applying those dollars is out of putting actual dollars into the capital fund
I would leave it at a 930.
with no project attached to it.
Well, the project is the bond, the note, right? The 200,000 is the note.
I see. So you're saying move the actual, the school dollars that we had there
Yes.
into 930 out of the reserve fund.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah. Christina had it at 930 and she thought we could move it to the reserve. But I don't
Okay.
believe we can because of the Moose Meadow Road project. So I would just leave it as Christina had it originally
Okay.
in local funds.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So that brings us to a starting point of a $445,629 increase. Jim, you had some questions you wanted to talk about. We'll start with you.
My first question under, let's see, 151 item 590 purchase services.
What department are you in? Under town clerk?
Yep.
Okay.
And I'm just reading Robin's memo. She put in an extra $2,000 or $3,000 in her budget for unknown software purchase, and I'm thinking perhaps we could cut that back.
So I'm gonna ask if Robin's on, if she can talk to us. It wasn't it was an increase in cost of software that we have to have. So I want to make sure that we can support with dollars the cost of the software. Can you speak to that, Robin? Do you have a known?
Yes. Yeah, can you hear me?
I hear you fine.
All right. So actually purchase services is what we use for our land recording vendor. It's COT Systems. And normally they cover like, when we get our like land records in, it's also viewable to people, online. They can print them out and stuff. So it's hosted and stuff. That additional $3,000 included two things. It was, let me just look at it. So purchase services. Yeah, so that actually additional $5,000 was a breakdown of two things. The contract that we have with COT right now, it expires in September of 2023. And we were told to add 5% onto that. So that is, and of course, where are the breakdowns for that? I have it somewhere. And then the other thing was an additional $3,000 for what we call a grantor grantee index book. COT was down, like they were hacked on December 26th, which it affected all of the searches for recordings and stuff. So we found title searchers had to come in and like basically look at everything in paper. And having that grantor grantee book that I'm requesting to cover, we didn't have. That hasn't been done since, Rachel, when was that, 2009? Yeah. The grantor grantee book, index book that would ease of like researching and stuff hasn't been done since 2009. So that basically we have something, it's a tiny little like spreadsheet, I guess, that you'd have to like thumb through, and it's not in alphabetical order. We actually got good news last week that we should be able to print that ourselves. So I would be, I'm okay with decreasing that $3,500 cost to maybe $1,000 because we still need the book and the paper to do it. And the books are costly. They're like, I want to say they're $300 for the books. I would need 2 books at least. Rachel's thinking we can probably do for all of the, what is it, 2009 to 2022. We can do 2 books, but we would need a grantor book and a grantee book. So that is still going to be like $600 for the books. And then I need the paper too. And of course it's special vital paper. So that would be a couple $100 as well.
Do you think that could support $1,000 reduction?
Yes. Sorry.
I thought she said one, because
I thought she said reduce it to $1,000.
Yeah, reduce to 1,000, but no, I'm sorry, hold on.
It would be a portion of it, not that whole 58.
Right.
Yeah,
So instead of a $5,980 increase, I'm requesting sold.
No problem. So while we're holding, I think it's important to note, Robin, to bring in a more favorable budget last year, made a reduction in her budget for this particular item. So I'm not inclined for us to put it off much longer. And I don't know if she'll have funds in her current budget to support it, or I think she would go that direction.
I just want to hear what her ciphering is. She's got new information.
But if she can successfully do it in-house for less money, then I think that's something, that I'm inclined to support.
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to grab the other, because he said to increase the our contract. He's thinking it probably will go up about 5%, and I'm trying to. I have it somewhere. I just can't.
Well, we can revisit this while Robin was looking at this. I didn't have any other.
What else do you have? So
clerk items.
We'll let you look at that, Robin, and get back to us with a number, even if it's not during the course of this meeting. We'll get a new number and plug in and make that adjustment.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
I'm gonna mute myself.
And if you can give us the departments, that would help. And we go to.
So that you got the last one, right?
That would sound good.
So my next one would be town office operations 181.
Which line?
434 computer expense.
Oh, sure.
Might as well go for that, right?
Yeah. So
and so didn't we get a bunch of computers? Didn't we purchase a bunch through ARPA?
We did.
Memory serves.
We did.
And could that perhaps be adjusted, maybe $5,000 off or something like that this year? I know we got at least a couple, 2 or 3.
Well, I would say most, some had them a year before. Donna, it's not just computers, it's printers. That 5,000, like we have a line item in there to support computers. So while we could consider adjusting there, because while folks do have new laptops, I won't say everybody does, the majority of staff did, but that doesn't cover any of our printers, smaller printers. The large copiers are covered under a lease, and that lease is a separate line item.
It looked to me like an area you could save about $5,000. That's why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah, so I would, where I caution us, Jim, is if we cut $5,000, which is the money we put in for printers, monitors, any of those things, the Zoom is paid for out of there. So there's really no wiggle room at all if something goes down. And when I say, we have to pay for Zoom, we use that. Yep. So we can't cut, I wouldn't cut 5,000 from in there.
Are we on line 0181434?
Yes, computer expense. So within that,
so right now it's an increase of 30,000.
Yeah, so our IT services are going up 8%. So our managed support is an 8% increase. We also saw an increase in our Veeam backup, the Novus hosting, and Microsoft licensing. And
so how much of this 175,668 is all those services versus hardware?
The majority of 141,215. And that so 141,215 is the Novus piece of it. And that's our right. So then there's also planning and zoning, their laser fiche, we support that. This includes Donna, that 16,000 includes the senior center, right? That's an important one for us to talk about after this.
Yes.
$5,000 is our Zoom and for any computers, monitors, printers, Adobe software.
Another 5,000.
Right, that's $5,000 for that. The fire marshal software is $12.95. Our communication software is $5,000. Our website is in there for $45.68, and we have funds in there for cyber training at $1,600. What's in here for $16,100 for us to discuss is a one-time project for, and I think I talked about this last time, for the senior center, and that would be bringing the senior center into support for with Novus. So they would manage all of the senior center devices now, not just our staff that's there. Right now we have one device that's managed through Novus. This would manage all of them and make sure that they were protected, and some increased cost there. And then they believe that they could cover the managed support moving forward within the budget that we have, because the amount of time would be negligible.
Okay, so just as sort of a background question,
Yes.
then. There are a lot of things in here that are other departments. And I understand it's town office operations,
Yeah.
so it's sort of a catch-all. But like, for example, you talked about fire marshal software. Shouldn't that, since that's unique to the fire marshal, shouldn't that software show up in the fire marshal's budget? So that we really see what that department's costs are.
It's possible. I'm gonna defer to Donna and the history of this particular item.
So Mike, the poor fire marshal, when they first got this fire program software, you know, he has such a small budget, he had no money in there. And
Right.
one time it was being split between the two departments.
The fire departments and the
Yes,
fire marshal, yeah.
I don't know if that's still happening, but yes, the software, everybody has their software. It's all in one place.
Well, the fire departments don't, the fire departments show it in there, but they're a separate organization also, they're not in this building, I understand that. I'm just saying,
I'm not opposed to that, Mike.
it's taxpayer money anyway, why
Yeah,
not show it in the
right.
department that's using it?
I'm not opposed to it. Well, again, there's the planning and zoning, the laser beach.
Right, that's
software
another one I was
is in
thinking,
here.
show it in their budget.
Right, and so, but the biggest drivers in this increase, without question are not those items, those
It's the
actually.
paid services.
It's the hosting services, our managed support, and that one-time project at the senior center. So that would put some, not monitors, but new desktops in the senior center that the public use. It would be all of the things that go into remediating and then managing that. And then in future years, it would be wrapped in the same one-time managed support cost that we have. So it would not.
Would we want to put some of that hardware on ARPA? That's perfect. You're talking about.
Well, so we closed the ARPA submissions. So, you know, we could talk to ARPA if they wanted to go back through it, but this is Novus doing, you know, a one-time project for us. I've also asked them to run the numbers for the library. I think it's important that if we're going to have all of these services, we need to make sure that they're protected so that when residents come to use our computers, they know that they're secure. And there's certainly some risk at both of those places. So I asked Novus to give us costs on one time. So that does include that one time. If we choose not to do that, they're again on their own for how to manage their computer issues. And I think there's a risk there. So that was my thought.
Do those departments have access into any of the software that's in here? Or are they essentially like on their own on the internet?
They're on their own on the internet. So we have a staff now, right? We're the senior center coordinator there. So they have access to everything the town has.
Right,
That's
and
the
their
only computer
computer's
there.
protected.
Their computer, but nothing else over there. The Wi-Fi is
That's
pretty,
Problem, right?
yeah,
So they're on
Right.
an unprotected network.
yes, all of it
Right.
is pretty sketch. And then we're, you know, certainly I have much concern for the residents going in there to utilize a machine if that's their only access to the internet and not knowing that it's protected. And when something fails.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand the different levels of protection, like we protect
Yeah,
the servers and the data that is in this
There's
building
no-
and in this operation is protected because it's the town's functionality.
right.
And then there's a computer that's out at a building that you just want to protect the user on the internet.
Right.
Those are
multiple
two different
And
things.
there's
that-
multiple levels of protection, not
Right.
at the senior center.
Right,
And
yeah, probably.
some of those at the
multiple
senior
ages of
center will
equipment,
disagree with us, but
So the point of my inquiry was that there was a fair amount of money that was, we bought some computer hardware with ARPA. Is there any possibility, is there, in viewing that, in that regard right there, could be, is there any reduction you can make in that budget right there? And if we need to go look at it closer, I suggest look at it a little.
Kelsey, do you recall exactly how much we spend on Zoom? I think we just got the annual bill.
$695.
So, you know, maybe $3,000. I wouldn't want to leave us with nothing if a printer stopped working. And we weren't able to replace some of those smaller things. We're only going to be in warranty on devices for a year, I believe. And if I recall, Donna's office went on new hardware before everybody else. So they're probably past that time frame now. So we have had some issues with some docking stations and some laptops already. So we do have kind of a monitor graveyard to choose from. I'm not so much worried about monitors. And I did talk with Novus in their project, one-time project for the senior center. They could have used some of our newer desktops to be able to satisfy the need over there. That you know, they know what we have and what's best, because several weren't that old when we moved to the laptop system. So we might see some savings there, but maybe 3,000. I still would like to leave us a buffer if we ever need a Zoom, if we need to upgrade Zoom to host more individuals, then that's an additional monthly cost there on top of the annual cost, because we only have hosting capability for 100 person meeting. So let's say we'll take that whole thing down by $2,000 down, so to 28,423. Increase.
Question about a couple of lines down, item 531. Okay, 531.
Postage. 531 is
534.
the internet.
Yeah, internet.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like historically we were spending about $700-800 or something like that. Why 1,500? Why? You know, maybe I'm just, why that amount? Why did it go up? Or can we drop that one by about $800?
That's CEN and just CEN. Hold on, now I'm asking Donna.
It's all, I believe it's all CEN.
And that should be our portion, right?
Yes.
1,500. We split out.
But why aren't we getting billed for 1,500?
Right.
Yeah, particularly when you look at
We should check that.
But yeah, we'll check that out, but I'm hesitant to cut it because it should be.
Yeah, we should be being billed.
Yeah. They've given us very specific costs.
Maybe the fire marshal's.
Maybe. We picked somebody and said you went there.
Consulting engineering, 183,500 at the bottom of the page. Looks like we use a couple of grand a year for land use or public works engineering. And we're budgeting for 10 grand. I'm wondering why we can't drop out, like say 6 grand out of each line item.
So yeah, I will say I know we have some larger projects coming in that we would be using. We utilized Carl for, and then some we're actually going to end up going out for land use. Their number isn't always based on a known. It's application driven, so be hesitant to claw back that number. You don't know who's going to apply and need engineering review, and so that has to be done. And I know we have a couple of large projects, and the grants don't always cover the engineering, specifically Village Hill and Schofield Road drainage, as well as working on the Lister Road drainage. So while we certainly can suggest that, we do really well to only do the things we know about, but these are things that are in heavy activity right now. And Carl actually just did he's in the middle of doing some significant engineering work, and we haven't seen the bill yet for this current portion of Village Hill.
So we don't, I mean, when we
So,
work that out through CIP, I know we obviously put a chunk in for engineering and then for. Like we put an engineering chunk in the beginning.
if there's a project in CIP,
Yeah.
so these, right now, we're working on a specific grants that have come our way. And so we're doing the engineering to make ourselves eligible for
So
grant
they're
funds. Yeah,
okay. Are the engineering costs covered by grant?
not always.
Not always.
It depends on the grant. Some are specifically exclude.
It looks like an opportunity to save a couple $1,000 out of each line.
I think there's a risk.
That's what,
500 right now, like
that's what I was thinking too, just looking at the trend the last couple of years, even if we just took 1,000 off each one or 2,000 off each one, you'd save a little bit, and at least it doesn't look like you're risking crashing that line item.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting going into there.
I know it was cut by, Board of Finance a couple of years ago. We encouraged them to get it back up, and then you see 1 year where we used almost nothing. That was the year we had lots of things planned, and well, brains said otherwise.
I mean, the other thing is, it's in the Board of Finance's purview to manage risks, right? And that's why you use the unassigned balance.
Right.
But that's
So-
not right. It's up to us to determine our needs,
Risky,
so.
just puts the big
So,
Yeah,
belt and suspenders thing, you only
So-
put it together.
Troy, you're, one of the things when you had been advocating over the last couple of seasons for more equipment, my favorite topic. One of the things you talked about was being able to do more projects. And this potentially would come in play working with Carl to help you set up more projects.
Correct.
Do you have something specific on your radar for this coming budget year after July 1 that you see needing Carl for?
Well, Liska Road, not that we would do, but Liska Road needs some attention. Village Hill, like Erica said, we're working it. If that doesn't happen, we were gonna, there was money decided to work on that, but we needed a set of plans with elevations and everything,
Right.
so that.
And he said he was not, it was Schofield was beyond his capabilities, right? But Village Hill, he could do.
He basically has a full set of plans for Village Hill currently.
Right.
Schofield is where we may need some additional
Right.
funds, as we work there.
And then I mean, this might be just going out here on a long shot, but if something were to ever happen to Carl or whatnot, that Carl still works for a certain price, where if you had to go to a different engineering firm, I'm sure it'd be a lot more than what Carl does now. So that's something to think about it in the future or whatnot. I mean, that's.
Okay, well, that was my area to look at for potential opportunities. I'm moving on now to senior center operations. Should have bought a ruler with me this evening, 185-430, senior center maintenance and miscellaneous always has me wondering about stuff. So I'm looking historically, it looks like 1 year we spent 11 grand, next year we spent 6 grand.
So I would say there's less miss and most maintenance in here.
Yeah, what's that all about?
Well, they gave us a list, so if you had an opportunity to look at the specific budget documents, you'll see they've given you a list of maintenance items that they want to prioritize. Certainly all of them won't be able to be done in that, but it was a potential for a motor for a fan intake, expansion take over the hot water heater, ductwork inspection and cleaning, heat in the bathrooms and offices, repair to replace, a potential of a second oil tank, replacing the awning, replacement of a shed ramp, repaving the parking lot, power washing the deck, removing raised beds from behind the center, ceiling tile replacement, moving and replacing front planters. Some of these things can be worked in conjunction. I think Troy said, we could sit down and work some of them, but some of them are expensive. And that doesn't take into account any maintenance not anticipated. So they increased their line items specifically because they had a list of what they believe are known needs.
Okay, so a list of known maintenance items.
Yeah, you should have that in your budget book.
I missed that.
No, it's in this book, Kelsey made
No,
you.
I missed that. Where that is, Public Works. And this specifically is 3115770. How many catch basins?
The cost of.
So it's the story behind that one.
So the cost went up basically. Last year, we couldn't get crop, our vendor is a state approved vendor. I spoke with another contractor, he couldn't do it for the price that Crop was doing it, so Crop did the catch basins. And this year with the price of fuel and everything going up, the basically went up to what the price is there for the 45,000. So
Up to 118% basically.
pretty much, yeah, the price of fuel and everything and the labor costs. This year, we didn't get the pump all day, we did about 500 basins and there's about 840 in town, so we didn't pump all of them. So with that extra pump this year, we feel that we can get all of them done, even the ones that were excluded this year.
With the increase of cost this year, it just didn't cover, and we're looking at potentially adding 16 basins to in the Village Hill project. If we get
And we added some
funding
more
for that.
Moose Meadow, so it's over.
Yeah.
We added a few there.
So since we're using so little sand, can we stretch this budget at all? You know, they used to be full of sand every
Right,
year.
exactly. I mean,
And we used to pump them on an every other year basis, we
Right.
would alternate, like, I remember the green dots and the red dots, right?
right,
Yeah.
MS4 plays a part in that too. The
Right.
state, you know, with our permitting there, they
Every
want to
year.
know how many basins and how much material is being used. So if
Right.
something does happen, you know, or we fell behind or whatnot, that the state does look at that in our
Right.
permitting process.
I've looked at some other towns, I was just curious, and it's pretty easy to search like MS4 and put a town name in it. And
Yeah.
a lot of towns publish their reports.
Yeah.
And once I figured out where in the report this stuff was, and actually it was when we were talking about salt last year versus sand. I started looking at various towns. And it seems like it's pretty consistent that only the smallest towns are doing all of them every year.
Right.
Almost all the bigger towns are saying, we just can't afford to do it. And they're doing 25% a year or 50% a year. Is there some sort of risk in that? Or,
Those
I
bigger
mean-
towns, are they using just pure salt?
yeah, they're using salt.
Okay, so we still use varies the storm, so we still use the sand and salt mix, you know, but we've tried to push that, we just don't have. The full facility to run pure salt every single time due to the elevations and
Sure.
stuff like that. So there
Well,
is-
let's face it, sometimes sand makes more sense anyway.
Right, exactly.
And we have
that's,
some
you
that
know,
would have to
Yeah.
be pumped every year,
Right,
like the crazy ones that are on the dirt portion of Mason Road.
right.
Sure.
There's-
Make
there
my
are-
head-
They're- yeah,
They just-
Of course.
A lot of pipes in town need to be jetted. There are full of the not doing it for so long,
Right.
that the pipes, you know, there is. And Crop has a new vac truck with a jet on it, so if they do see something, they can jet the pipe out, which makes the water flow better, drainage, you know, keeps it off the road. So there is with that added cost, you know, with that, but maybe next year I would recommend, you know, trying to get them all done this year, and then if you wanted to skip some or
Because we
do
didn't
half
get
and
them
half,
all done.
but we didn't get them all done, no. And they vary from roads to roads, you know, hey, this is what needs to happen, this had got washed out, it
Sure.
wasn't all over. So that's.
sure, well, those roads, like where we, 2 years ago, where we had all the problems up in the north end of
Yeah,
town.
exactly.
Those catch basins got filled right up.
Right up, and so they got sometimes pumped twice, I know Mason Road on the dirt, he pumped them twice.
We either had, someone came in.
And
was
then,
that when the pump
yeah, the
come
pump
in
might.
and jetted
Yeah,
one of them there for us.
Yeah, it's got all plugged up.
Yeah, but they were generous enough to bring
Bring their own
in
truck
and
and-
charge us.
yeah, it was that basin by Daleville School and Mason, that basin right on that corner there, it was completely clogged. They came in and jetted it out, and fortunately, it's running clean now, so. That's
Knock on wood.
Knock on wood. But, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't recommend them cutting it, but that's up to you guys, so that's something, you know.
Just a-
right,
Yeah.
Just a thought process, you know, as I was looking at those towns, I was saying, well. What's really the right answer here?
A lot
Is the
of
right
times-
answer those towns are just not doing a good enough job, or is the right answer they figured out? That this is only what they can afford to spend, and that's just too bad, and I'm not sure what the
Yeah,
right
well,
answer
and
is.
some of it is with the, look, there's no question we could continue to rehash that we don't belong in this permitting anyway. But while we're there, there's a certain level of making progress towards. Full compliance that we've been allowed to get away with, and I think other towns as well, because there really isn't a whole lot of oversight on a regular basis. We have them come out once or twice
Well, the state doesn't
I think
like
they're
to find
No, but I think
towns.
they came out here twice,
Right.
right, to kind of audit ours.
I
Especially.
mean, technically, we're supposed to sweep twice a year. We don't have the staff for that. You gotta remember, some of your bigger towns too, like back truck, like their leaves. So their
Right.
leaves and stuff aren't going down into the catch basin and
Right.
creating that. So there's all different types,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? That's,
It's possible,
It is
there's
possible.
some risk, and we could come back and say, look, if there was something we were gonna risk, you know, maybe this is in, we just say, we're gonna do the half that Troy didn't do this year. Next year, along with those that, you know, a handful that need to be done every
Yeah, I'm
year.
not necessarily advocating for it, was really more just of a discussion
Yeah.
point, like, you know, what do we know about this, how do we feel about it?
exactly. I mean, and we can also have like Truex comes in with like a clamshell. They came in one year before they backed them, crop backed them. My first year, they came in and basically clamshelled as much as they can out of it, which was a lot cheaper, and then crop came in and backed them out. So when we're at that point where we're not, they're not full of sand like they were.
And
Some
those
of them-
better roads wouldn't even need to be clamshelled and all that stuff,
Exactly.
because there's not gonna be
There's not
much
gonna
in
be
it,
much
you'll
in
get
it.
it with the back.
You'll get it with the back.
Right.
So my only comment is, it looks like that's an area where you could possibly do some cost savings.
If
We
we
have
don't
done,
do, if we don't do them all.
we don't do them all, and we have done in the past every other year. It's not like we don't do them, but we have done them every other year. And yes, there are some that need to be done all the time.
It's a preventative maintenance thing
Yeah.
too. I mean, that's if the
And
more
that's all
you
I'm saying. I mean,
it's.
you know, as Mike was saying, maybe other towns have figured out a better way.
Yeah, and I would say we
or
went
more
to,
cost effective way to do it.
we moved away with the MS4s when we moved away from the every other year. Like that's when we made that move towards doing them every year. So while there was a time where that was the standard, we weren't under the same kind of permitting rules. It's been in place since 2017.
My recommendation is we can drop it a little bit, so. Okay, miscellaneous supplies, couple lines down, 311,610.
That's just basically the cost of everything that's going up, and that miscellaneous supplies, we buy chains. With it, if we need a tool that went bad in the garage, a grinder, anything like that, that's where that comes out of. That if we need a new ladder, that's where the miscellaneous supplies come out of.
Okay. Again, I always gravitate towards miscellaneous.
No, it's just an extra, if a tool or something, we need a tool. I mean, the other day we did a set of brakes on a truck, we needed a socket, we had to purchase the socket. For it to pull the hub off, so we needed that, so that's something where miscellaneous supplies.
Okay. Next item below, 612, building maintenance supplies.
So building maintenance, that's anything with like the overhead doors, if something had a problem with the heater comes out of that. When they service the oil burner heater, that gets done twice a year, that comes out of that. Anything with a propane heater, basically anything that happens with the building, basically.
Right, public works building, right?
Well, yeah, that's just public works.
So, I mean, it looks like, a couple of years back or previously, we spent about $6,000 a year. So far this year, half a year, we spent maybe just a touch under 4. So I'm wondering if there's it looks like there's an opportunity there to drop that a little bit from the 10,000 that's budgeted. It's my thought, that's all.
No problem.
That's my recommendation would be to drop it a little bit. I'm still on public works. I moved off to parts and supplies. Item 650. I'm just curious, you have a newer fleet, right?
Right, but that all comes with like oil changes, tires would come out of that, chains if the chain broke for the body would come out of that. Lights, if a light broke, that's where all that stuff comes out.
That's every truck,
That's
that's
every
mowers,
everything.
sweeper.
Yeah, we buy brooms out of that, for the sweeper. Yeah, basically anything that we purchase for the vehicles comes out of that.
I'm just curious, since we bought a few new things, is there any savings involved there, or?
No, not, I mean.
I got to ask the question.
Yeah, no, I mean, just because it's new, it doesn't mean something can happen. I
Well,
mean, if we snapped a tooth on the bucket or something like that, or we needed teeth for the bucket, for the excavator or the backhoe. We had our clamshell on the backhoe, that broke, we had to buy a piece for that. that's where all that would come out.
And if I recall some of our discussions, because this was an item I brought up at the same time, was the cost of supplies has increased. So rather than increasing that line item, keeping it flat, and that would cover the increase in cost of goods currently.
So it's a reduction by keeping the number flat, it's a reduction in the amount of things you can purchase.
Yeah.
Because they're getting more expensive.
And then I don't like to say out loud that just because that's new, but that's not gonna break, because that hears us and it's gonna, right? Murphy's Law, but yes.
Line 684 aggregate. So you got $8,000 there, but it seems like we've never spent $8,000.
But if you go down the dirt roads now, we're gonna spend all of that, so. Yeah. We've been maintaining the dirt roads, and that's.
Lack of a really cold winter is not benefited our dirt roads.
All the rain, it's not helped it. Again, question, aggregated.
And that goes for if we do a pipe job too, you know, the more drainage, we put a catch basin and put stone around the bottom of it, that's where that comes out of.
Okay. All right, I'm just going by based on usage. It looks like you've been using regularly about half that amount. Yeah, it's an opportunity for savings, or an opportunity to consider. On street signs, one down 690. Looks like we spend the regular. Looks like we spend a couple of grand a year. We're budgeting 5.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we
actually, it looks like you dropped it.
A little bit, but I mean, the price of signs.
We were having some serious
sign issues, yeah, and we still are. The price of signs have gone up. There's a list that we've been currently going through on the colder days on how many street signs need to be replaced. They have them in an average sign is about $75 to $100 for a street sign. So there's a few that are missing, you know, that seem to be in people's garages or somewhere because they're the same ones. So.
Well, there's the fall fraternity sorority season,
right.
And then there's the spring graduation season, and then after May, the signs just stop disappearing. They stop disappearing after
And any
May.
sign that has to be now, it has to be that retro.
Strange.
Yeah, now you can't just use all of some of the signs we have,
We
right?
are older, they have to be all that retro reflective.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of signs, but a lot of them are no good that we've been going through because they don't meet the requirements.
Are they worth anything? Just for scrap metal, I mean,
Basically, yeah.
They're much more important on the wall of your college apartment. Or dorm room.
I don't know.
Seen thousands.
Yeah. Start taking them down.
Troy, question on 730 equipment purchase. What's that one?
That's if we buy something like for like the skid steer or the excavator, we bought a bucket, an extra bucket, anything like that. A mower, we're currently gonna buy a mower for the skid steer in the spring. That's where that's why I saved the rest of the amount of money there. It comes out of if we needed something for the sweeper.
But equipment, would that be chainsaws?
The chainsaws, chainsaws, leaf blowers.
Or equipment comes out of there?
I suppose the other thing, which is the sockets, a ladder.
A ladder, I mean, anything, yeah, exactly. The equipment is more of, you know.
Shovels for
shovels, yeah.
Whiners at the town hall, they'll eat it.
Pails for calcium, yeah.
Oh, not that is it healthy.
What's going down out to snow? 311 422 snow removal.
That's a contractor.
Contractor.
Yeah.
That bid is up this year.
So the bid is up. We based it on a higher rate. And still just one contractor.
When does that go out?
It'll be about April, we'll go out along with the tree bid, the landscape bid.
We budgeted on 100 and I can't remember the number of hours. It was a 5-year average, and it was just under $200 an hour. I'm not going to tell you exactly how much this is. I'm going to go out to bid, but we did increase it from what we were paying
Because we're only getting one bid.
because we've only gotten one, and even that our current contractor, has been very vocal in saying, with the price of fuel increase and the price of goods increase, we just know how long he could do it at that cost. So most things we saw had an increase in the surcharge for fuel specifically. So that's a lot of why you see that,
What about the sand line item there? We seem to budget a lot, but it doesn't look like we spend it. It doesn't look like we're spending any money, so it's.
We do have a pile at the ground, we've cut back, it's just one of those things, if we don't know how the winter plays. If we cut it out of there, if we still. Read it.
And that's strictly for
Just strictly
winter sand.
winter sand here. And that bid, I believe, comes out again this year.
Yeah, we've had a couple of good winters, and we're having a good winter where we haven't needed, depending on the kind of. Snow or the kind of weather you have is whether or not you.
Yeah, it looks like
a
we
lot
didn't
more
buy any for
sand.
a couple of years.
No, we had a massive pile
Okay.
and didn't have a need for it. In those winters, and it increase it. I kept saying this was gonna be the year we were gonna get hit with it, and here we are.
That's a story of solve.
It's just the price of it every year.
How do you price it?
It's not $30 a ton this year, and who knows what's gonna happen next year.
How about calcium chloride?
That is for the sidewalks, the pellet for the sidewalks.
That's the pelleted version.
That's it, yep.
We seem to be, we seem to regularly spend less than what we budget.
If, once it weather depending, basically.
Weather depending.
Yeah, I mean, the price is on a pallet, I wanna say is around $1,200 now. So that's, last year we had a pallet left over, so we're still using that this year. If that pallet goes, then we would buy a pallet or two next year. So that's.
What snowplow equipment? Looks like historically we spent less than the $900 we budgeted.
That's just if a plow breaks or whatnot. So that's, I mean, like I said, that's dependent again on the winter. If we have a hard winter, it's cutting edges, stuff like that. We've stockpiled a few, so if something happens, we have them there.
Is there an opportunity to reduce that at all?
Sure, but there's a, look in the snow, it's all based on risk, right?
Yep.
So it's, evaluating our snow budget and going back to the board of
I'm looking
finance
at an
regularly to
11%
say.
increase.
I'm not saying, you asked if
You gotta look
there's
at
a
all
place
these
for cut,
bits
and I
and
said
bobs,
yes.
you know.
And then again, you monitor, look, we're having, again, I knock on everything I can, a really good year, no budget wise. There were a couple of years, at least in my 5 where it was touch and go as to whether or not we were gonna have a
And
budget.
we have had years where we've expended the entire snow budget by January.
Yes, yeah,
Absolutely.
and so then we reevaluate and sometimes
Yeah, I
we just go
think-
back to,
I think some of these things are a gamble, but, what also ends up happening is we get in well into the year and then we have these conversations in like March saying, well, we'd really like to do this other thing and we've got a whole bunch of money we can collect from all these line items in the budget. Where our savings and we can do this other thing. And now it makes it easy to approve doing the other thing
right,
because you had all this extra money in all these different places. So it's kind of trying to figure out, are we banking the taxpayers' money in line items where we don't need to bank it?
right.
Or is that good insurance against risk?
Yeah, and this
You
is
know?
the one where we know that these are numbers not based on any norm, but just an average.
And
Right,
sure.
and so this is the one area where you go, you get a really great year, a really bad year,
Right.
and we evaluate it as we go.
This is where the Board of Finance manages risk using the other side balance, and that's,
Right.
so having a double risk hedge is expensive. My next question is for cemetery, 342,300, seems like we regularly give them $2,000.
Right,
What are we giving them $2,000 for?
to maintain the town cemetery.
Is it just that? Is it for maintenance?
Yeah. You agree with that? That's. Would they use that for mowing?
Well, I don't really know what they use it for.
Okay,
They-
I remember asking a
Yeah.
long time ago when I was on the Board of Finance or something. I don't think it's been asked recently. I'm just curious what they use.
I know they mow they pay someone to mow all of the cemeteries.
And I'm sure they got trees coming down on their cemeteries just like there in our yards, so. Just curious, what do they use the money for? I'd like to get an answer before our budget. Doesn't have to be today, but
Donna, who do you emailed someone specific about that? I know. Stewart's involved, Jeff Prusak is there,
I don't email anybody.
nobody, we just
We just
historically
give
given
them $2,000
$2,000.
every year. They don't even ask for it. They don't
Yeah.
tell us anything what they do with our.
I think you know where the $2,000 going.
It's an opportunity to ask a question.
Could be for a good reason.
So it's not a fund. they must give us something for, we just write it to Cemetery Association?
We do, we write the check, July 1, payable to the Cemetery Association.
Seems to me like that's better off like a fund, well, yeah, I mean.
I would ask
It
them,
probably goes to
Similar
a
to-
historical
similar to
agreement
the
that's
fire
probably
department.
100 years old somewhere. That the town would provide some of the funding, and the association
Yeah.
probably raises some of their funding
You
through
make
the
those-
sale of plots and all that too.
Reach out.
Funds, and this just helps.
and I know.
Right.
It's either Stuart or Jeff or one of
And I
those.
know they've,
Jeff.
I know they
Well,
talked
it
to,
was.
I know the cemetery association talked to the library and said, hey, you can invest money like we did, and, you know,
Right.
they've managed their endowment very well.
Yeah.
But I'd still like to know where's it
Well,
going?
if they're using it to invest in an endowment, that's a problem, problematic.
So, all the more reason.
So,
to just
yeah.
ask.
Well, it's
They
right,
probably have a simple answer that's how we pay for the mowing.
and that's one of the interesting ones, unlike some of those other funds, right, we transfer out to specific funds and they're set up to utilize within there. That this is not, but there's also there's no check as to what they're utilizing the funds for. Right,
Right,
no
because you
billing
don't
comes
see
through
the
here for
expense,
that.
it's not in our breakdown of expenses
give them-
because the bill doesn't come here.
Yeah, there's no bill, so what is the expense?
Okay, it's an
Okay.
opportunity to
Yeah.
ask and learn. I think we should
Yeah.
ask and learn. 351430, I'm on transfer station maintenance. Looks like we regularly spent under $2,000.
Mhm.
It's now budgeted for 3.
It was to do with some of the compactors, some of the railings need to be replaced that are coming apart on the back side of the. Basically, we're having a couple issues with our compactor and there was some electrical issues that we're getting involved. So that's kind of just basically maintenance.
Some known repairs
Some
and
known,
maintenance. Okay. Trash removal, 527.
Based on the amount of tonnage we send out and the current contracted rate,
That's how it works?
yes.
Are we getting anything from the recycling? Any revenue from that?
Yeah.
And is that moved somewhere else? Maybe that's why it looks like it's going up.
It doesn't go in here.
It doesn't show up in
Doesn't-
here
this
as
is
revenue, because
expenditure.
I've seen this on Board of Finance this past year. It
Got it.
shows up in her revenue report.
In other words, it used to hit this.
Right, now, Donna will tell us.
The steel, it's called steel. Was on the invoice as a credit, and now they are sending checks.
I think that was a
Okay.
change between Willie Waste and Casella.
Yeah, it happened, I think, right before the change of the companies. Willie Waste must have been aligning with the new way of doing things. And so you would have a reduction in your bill previously,
Yes.
Jim, but then what happened was you paid the full bill and got a check separately, so now it
Yeah.
comes in as revenue.
Right, so then it comes out on a different line.
Yes,
Okay,
Yeah,
so I thought one of the jokes.
so when Donna is telling us in March and April how we're doing on revenue, that's usually when she points out
yeah,
that what she's getting coming back
and I
from.
think every month she's got it on the bottom of her revenue sheets to the Board of Finance.
Okay, that was the specific question, right? Practically consumed our entire meeting.
Well, that's all
Well,
right.
you got like 4 of my questions too, so
Well, there you go, good.
Jim, did you have a dollar amount of your suggested cuts?
I did not, I can tally that up.
If Donna may, like, sometimes Donna is writing them down and making those adjustments if we choose to cut them.
I don't know
So-
if Robin gave us an answer to.
Okay, so. The big thing is to get,
She's on mute and looks like she wants to tell us.
she's muted.
are you talking to us?
Oh,
Robin?
sorry. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Here you go.
All right, so quickly, I finally found my paperwork with the COT hosted information. So I would really just need it increased by 2,500. So decreasing the $5,980, mine, like decrease that by 3,380. So it would really instead be 19,620 would be the
Thank you, Robin.
request.
okay,
All right, thank you. Okay, So we have no further budget meetings planned, but we don't have an approved budget. So we need to continue work on this. We present, I have to present our approved budgets to the Board of Finance on the first Thursday in March, 2nd or 3rd of March. Without a calendar, don't hold me to that date, but it's the first Thursday in March. So that means typically our next meeting, which would be, it's on a Tuesday because Monday, the 20th of February is a holiday. The Tuesday, the 21st, we would be approving both CIP and our budgets. I don't think we're ready to do that. I know I'm not. We haven't even talked about the things we want that we need to have a good solid conversation about that only increase this budget. So can you, are both of you, either of you available next Monday?
How are we on time here? We're out of time.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, just can you just answer one quick question for me about this? You did an introduction in the beginning. You talked about basically 3 positions that have been catching my attention, which was the 2 in public works, the mechanic, the laborer, and then you had also talked a little bit about wanting to do a facilities person, but choosing to not do that at this point. So what is actually in this package right now?
None of them are in this
None of
package.
them, that's what I
So
thought.
Troy has historically asked for 2, another labor and a mechanic.
Right.
We've come to a not so understanding agreement that we would move forward a discussion of a mechanic. So that's 1 position that's not in here, but we have a total.
None of those dollars are in this right now.
None of those
Okay,
dollars.
that's what I just want to be sure I understood.
And the other is the facilities director.
Yeah.
But each of those, one is 93 and change, and the other is 95,000 and change. So a considerable increase if we add positions.
Gotcha.
And they would both be full-time. And then there's the discussion of roads. In here is 115,000 as opposed to the 800,000 Troy is asking for.
Right.
And so we need to have we need to have a real discussion about that. So we can, if you're both available next Monday, we can meet next Monday. I do not believe there's another meeting after ours. Has any that we would
check my calendar. I
check
think
your
I have
calendar.
something family
Okay.
going on, but
So let Kelsey know your availability so that we can schedule a meeting so that we can have some solid work and we won't have a little bit of a time crunch. Okay. And if there's any questions you have about any items, please get them to Kelsey so that we can ask the appropriate departments and get you some information, awareness numbers so that we can come in and be as best prepared as possible. All right. No other item on that agenda. I will make a motion to adjourn.
second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We have 2 separate notes. So if you're online, you're going to get kicked off this meeting and you'll need to join the regular meeting at 6:30.